From above, Italy is instantly recognizable, yet the familiar boot hides are markedly complicated country. The Alps close the Nortile horizon, the Apennines form a rocky spine, and long coasts descend toward Sicily at the center of the Mediterranean. Italy stretches across more than 10 degrees of latitude, linking snowy high valleys with dry outer hills and volcanic islands. Seas surround most of the territory, but the peninsula has never been isolated. Its position between Western Europe, the Balkans, North Africa, and the Eastern Mediterranean crammed it into a corridor former chants, armies, languages, and ideas. This is the first key to Italy. Itis note one landscape with a famous. Itis a chain of regions arranged along mountains and water, where short distances can cross sharp boundaries in climate, architecture, agriculture, and identity. In the northeast, the Dolomites rise a shallow hour above forests and high meadows. Their rock began as reefs and marine sediments in warm tropical sea hundreds of millions of years ago. Later, the collision that built the Alps lifted those layers into dasky. Ice, frost, and running water cut the uplifted rock into pinnacles, vertical walls, and broad valleys. To result is a range whose color changes with the light, from gray at midday to rose and orange in ears unset. Villages occupy valley floors and gentler terraces, while roads cross passes that connect communities separated by stone. UNESCO recognizes the Dolomites for both their beauty and their record of mountain formation. From the air, that geology is visible structure, tilted layers, isolated massifs, and steep debrisfonds revel, and scape still being dismantled as quickly as weather can reach it. South of the Alps, the Po Valley opens into Italy's largest continuous plain. Rivers descending from the mountains carried adamant into an ancient marine basin, gradually building level ground between the Alps and Apennines. The Po collects that water and flows east to a shifting delta on Hadriatic. This plain supports dense necessities, intensive agriculture, and the country's strong Est-industrial corridor. Milan, Turin, Bologna, and many smaller centers are linked by railways, highways, and supply networks that take advantage of the flatter rain. Fields form geometric patterns around canals and old farm roads, while settlements merge into long urban belts. The same basin that concentrates a portion ideal, so traps air pollution and faces floods, drought, and competition for water. From above, northern Italy appears less like a collection of separate cities than one interconnected region organized by a river, productive soil, and the mountain walls that contain it. Venice and Sicily alla Lagoon, where rivers, tides, and Hadriatic meet. The historic city occupies more than 100 islands, joined by bridges and divided by canals. Buildings rest on foundations driven into waterlogged sediment, while the Grand Canal curves through the center like a main avenue. This unusual setting offered protection and access to merit oft, helping Venice build a network that once extended fair across the Mediterranean. But the lagoon is no empty space around the movements. Mud flats, salt marshes, channels, and barrier islands form a living system that absorbs waves and supports wildlife. Dredging, subsidence, rising seas, and heavy human use have altered that balance. From above, the city's fragility becomes obvious. Aiden's stone patterns, it's only slightly above the water, dependent on continual management of tides, navigation, and the wetlands. Scape that made Venice possible. Roma grew beside the Tiber River near a practical crossing and within reach of the Zaya. Low volcanic hills provided defensible ground, while fertile plains and routes the central Italy connected the settlement to a much larger territory. As Rome expanded, roads, aqueducts, and ports converted geography into a system of power. The modern city still carries the cellars, ancient forms, Renaissance systems, Baroque axes in 20th century districts overlap rather than replace one another. The Tiber bends through the center. Castel St. Angelo guards an old approach, and the Dome of St. Peter's rises beyond the boundary of Vatican City. UNESCO describes Rome's historic centers are record of almost 3 millennia. Seen from the air, the capital is not a frozen museum. It is a living metropolis repeatedly rebuilt around inherited routes, ruins, water, and hills. Tuscany's famous countryside is not simply natural scenery. It is a cultural landscape shaped by centuries of farming, forestry, roads, and settlement. Soft clay hills greet flowing contours, while harder ridges support walled towns such as Siena and San Gimignano. Farmhouses sit among olive groves, vineyards, and lines of cypress planted along approach and field boundaries. in Valdorcia. UNESCO recognizes the where Renaissance land management created an ordered landscape that also influenced artists. Yet the apparent calm depends on constant work. Terraces must be maintained, soils protected from erosion, vines adapted to changing rainfall, and historic villages kept economically alive. Florence grew along the Arno, a crossing between the Apennines and central Italy, turning regional trade into finance, art, and political influence. From above, Tuscany hum and decisions can become part of geography itself. The Apennines run for roughly 1,200 kilometers from north Sicily through the center and into the south. They are lower than the Alps, but their position makes them just as important. The chain divides short rivers flowing toward opposite coasts, shapes rainfall, and separates communities that may be close in a straight line but distant by road. Many towns occupy ridges for defense, and top reserve flatter valley land for crops. Forests cover high slopes, while limestone plateaus, caves, and deep gorges create unexpected wilderness near densely settled regions. The Apennines area so tectonically active. Faults responsible for building and stretching the range produced destructive earthquakes, especially across central lands Italy. Aerial views reveal both beauty and exposure. Villages cluster in arrow spurs, roads cross on stable slopes, and historic masonry stands with a landscape that continues to move. Along the Amalfi Coast and Cinque mountains fall so sharply, and to the settlement becomes an exercise in fitting life onto cliffs. Houses stack above small harbors, roads cling to rock, and stairways connect terraces that vehicles cannot reach. Generations built stone walls to hold soil for lemons, olives, and vines. The city races lower erosion and create pockets of usable land, but they demand continual repair. Coastal villages prospered through fishing, shipping, and trade before railways, and tourism changed the air economies. Today, the same dramatic relief that attracts visitors also limits roads, water supply, and evacuation routes. Heavy rain and cantrigrilin slides, while waves attack the base of the slopes. From above, the bright buildings and blue water form an iconic image. But the deeper story is adaptation. Community is transforming vertical terrain into homes, gardens, and routes without ever removing the mountain. The Bay of Naples combines one of Italy's densest urban regions with one of its most active volcanic landscapes. Vesuvius rise east of the city, famous for the eruption that buried Pompeii and Herculean Newman in the year 79. To the west, the Campofili Greco terrain includes many vents across a broad area where the ground can rise and fall. Volcanic ash created fertile soils that support vineyards and orchards, while the sheltered bay encouraged ports and settlement. That advantage produced enormous exposure. Roads, towns, and infrastructure nodes around systems capable of explosive activity. Monitoring by Italy's Geophysical Institute extracts gas, deformation, and temperature for signs of change. From the air, the volcano does not stand apart from human life. It belongs to the same urban landscape. Reminder that Italy's productive ground and celebrated scenery are often connected to geological risk. Sicily is the Mediterranean's largest island and a crossroads between Europe and Africa. Mountains ring much of the coast, interior hills support grain and pasture, and fertile plains surround major cities such as Palermo and Catania. Near the eastern shore, Mount Etna is above farms and towns. The sonic stratovolcano are more than 3,000 meters high. Love repeatedly destroys roads and fields, yet weathered volcanic material creates productive soil for citrus, olives, and vines. Sicily's position attracted Phoenician, Greek, Roman, Arab, Norman, and Spanish powers. Leaving ports, street patterns, crops, and architecture. UNESCO sites around Palermo and southeastern Sicily recordingly part of that layered history. From above, Etna, harbors, and old cities, El Zamastor. This island is not Italy's distinct edge, but a central platform in the zone where geology and migration continually reshape one another. At the southern foot of the Alps, glaciers excavated deep basins now filled by lakes Como, Garda, and Maggiore. Their long branches follow formous valleys, with steep mountains descending directly toward the shore. Towns occupy deltas, terraces, and narrow strips of level ground, often connected more easily by ferry than by road. The water stores heat and moderates low cold temperatures, allowing gardens, olives, and other vegetation to grow beneath snowy peaks. Villas and resorts later turned the lakes into national destinations, but their geography also supports drinking water, transport, fisheries, and hydropower. Development presses close, towns-table slopes, and extremorine fall can send debris into settlements with little space to retreat. From above, the lakes appear serene, yet they are active corridors where alpine water meets the dense economy of the Po Valley. Italy's food traditions form a map of elevation, rainfall, and local history. Irrigated plains of the north support maize and dairy farming. Hills in Piedmont, Veneto, and Tuscany carry vineyards where slope, soil, and exposure influence every harvest. Olive groves become increasingly common toward the warmer center and south, while volcanic soils support distinctive crops round Vesuvius and Etna. Wheat shapes the dry interior and provides the base for regional breads and pasta. Coastal communities add fishing traditions tied to the character of each sea. These patterns developed before mod-pod transport when communities depended more directly either by land and seasonal conditions. National cuis in a later linked them, but regional differences remain strong, from above. Rosso's vines, patchwork, orchards, flooded rice fields, and stoniter races, how that food is not separate from landscape. It is one of the clearest ways geography enters daily life. Italy's landscapes carry extraordinary cultural value, but they also concentrate modern pressures. UNESCO lists more than 60 World Heritage properties in the country, from many science city centers to the Dolomites and Mount Etna. Protecting them means managing places that are still inhabited, farmed, and visited. Climate change intensifies heat, drought, wildfire, and extremorine, while glacier retreat and low coasts face rising water. Earthquakes and volcanoes remain permanent features rather than historical events. Population aging and migration reshapes small towns, especially in mountain and southern regions, even as major destinations struggle with congestion. Italy's challenge is not to preserve a perfect postcard. It is to keep complex landscapes function while let their climate, economy, and population change. From alpine passes to Sicilian lava fields, the Peninsula's greatest strength has always been adaptation. Its future will depend on that ability again.